Here? She was here? So we'll do it, yes. Sarah Benzos? You're here. Malka Levana is here.
Yeah, that's right.
Michal Hernandez? No? Sarah Goldenberg? Absent. Maya Hernandez is here. Rocha Simcha? Mishka? Here. Sarah Keller is here. Dvora Koplowitz?
She was here, she's probably just downstairs.
And Chava Krimko? No. Rotem? She's here. She's not here?
Oh, she's in the second somewhere.
She's around. Dvora Namdar is here, right? Rivka Shira and Rachel? Both you here? Sisters here? And then Sharonel? Not here. Shayna? Here. And Sofa Geula is here. And then Iyar, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. How do I pronounce that?
Yara.
Yara. Thank you for that. Okay, that's I'm covering for Rabbi Kasima, as you've noticed. Plus on Thursday, Be'ezras Hashem, please God, we have a special class.
Wait, what's on Thursday?
It's a special class.
I'll put on lights.
Should I tell you or should I keep you curious?
Tell us.
Tell you. Tell you.
Light
special-
folks will be
Right, the special class is going to be on Kashirink,
Oh,
about
cute.
Kashirink and the ones that are reliable and the ones that are, et cetera, et cetera. Just how to navigate the world of Kashrus as a consumer. Okay, so today we're going to finish the laws of Kashirink. We are on page Kuf Chav Vav 126. Halacha Chav Zayin. For those of you that have Sfarim, and for those of you that don't, if you don't mind passing them around, thank you. Okay, so we said that after kosherizing a vessel, by using the water method, we do a cold rinse. When we kosherize a vessel with fire, especially when it's a red hot fire, there's no need to rinse the vessel thereafter because nothing purges, nothing comes out, it gets burned in its place. On the other end, when you kosherize with hot water, you are extracting the unwanted taste in the vessel, and we don't want those remnants to stay on, so that therefore we do a cold rinse. We do a cold rinse after the kosherizing so that it shouldn't reabsorb. The agol is kasher, it's kosher even if you don't rinse it. Because there wasn't a ben yoim, because when you kosherize the vessel, it was not used within 24 hours. Now, what about Kashmir vessels for Pesach? So as we're going to learn in a moment, halacha, strictly speaking, according to the strict letter of the law, you're allowed to use a vessel of its opposite kind as your kosherizing vessel, as long as it's not a ben yoimai. Does everybody understand what I mean by that? So if I have a vessel I did not use within 24 hours, that could be my kosherizing vessel. Why? Because the vessel was not used within 24 hours, so that any taste that's absorbed inside that vessel is going to be a spoiled taste, and therefore would not make the vessel not kosher. Kuf Chavav, 126. But the minig is actually to kosherize the kosherizing vessel before using it, if possible. Technically speaking, we are even allowed to use a chametz tikka that was not used within 24 hours. However, the minig is if you're going to use a chametz tikka keli, to first kasha the keli, even though it wasn't used in 24 hours. And if you want to use a kosher for Pesach keli as your kosherizing vessel, then after the kosherizing of that vessel, you should kasher the kashering vessel also. It's just these are minhagim. Now the next halacha, and halacha of test, gets us into a very interesting set of halachas. I want to introduce it by saying the following. As a Magen Avraham was one of the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch who says as follows: there are certain things we don't do as a custom because we're afraid if we start engaging in that kind of practice, we're going to come to make a mistake. In Torah, there are things that we're not allowed to do outright because it says in the Torah we're not allowed to do them. There are things that rabbinically they said we shouldn't do as a form of protection to protect the laws of the Torah. Right, for example, the laws of Pesach and Bishul Hakim, Chol Hakim are rabbinic protective measures, but then there are certain things that their custom is to refrain from because we might come to make a mistake. So there are certain things that inherently are permissible to do, but we don't do them. And there are even certain things that are permissible to do, but we don't do them in public. Not to try to suggest that we should try to hide things per se. But if we do them in a public setting and people are not going to understand the context, bless you, of what's going on, they might come to make a mistake and make an inappropriate type of comparison. Okay, makes sense? I'll give you an example. Somebody who's coming from Eretz Yisrael is only keeping one day of Yontiv, right? And they're in America, they're in New York, and in New York we keep 2 days Yontiv, so they only have to keep 1 day Yontiv. But in public, they shouldn't break Yontiv, they shouldn't mechal Yontiv, they shouldn't do halachas because it looks like, Yontiv is very cavalier, it's casual, we don't really have to keep it. It's gonna create a bad image in public. In private, they don't have to keep Yontiv. There's actually a story about one of the, I think it's a Knesset member, who was keeping only 1 day Yontiv, and he was staying in Manhattan. He came to Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah is the second day of Yontiv. He was coming to the Rebbe's office. So, but they made arrangements for him to come. This Knesset member, I guess he was religious, but maybe not so religious. He told Maskiris that he's going to take a taxi to come. So they answered Meves from them. We know about this. Like it's not a violation of the Torah because he doesn't have to keep Yontiv. It's just anyway. I guess for the sake of the greater good, for the sake of the community, that's probably played into it also because he was a community member, and Rebbe was giving him clear directives to help Klal Yisrael in Yisrael. But just gives you a perspective on these halachas. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. So there's a concept that we're not supposed to switch back and forth from milchiks to fleishiks by kashering our vessels back and forth on a routine basis constantly, especially when it comes to kashering with water, because we might come to make a mistake. Let's say, for example, I have one set of dishes, right? And I say, okay, today I'm going to be fleishiks. Tomorrow I'm going to kasher them. It's kind of it's an insane way to live. But there are some single people who probably live this way. They could potentially live this way. I'm going to kasher this way. And then before you know it, after a few weeks, you don't remember if you're coming or going. I remember when I was in camp, I'm digressing, but you'll forgive me. My brother was a counselor for the 13 or 14-year-old kids. In English, you'd say the wild animals. I don't mean the wild animals, but the wild children. So as counselors in camp, and of course we were having a good time. So he got himself a baseball hat that had 2 flaps. Usually a baseball hat has 1 flap coming out this way. He had two flaps. One was going this way, one was going that way. And the top it said, "I'm their leader." Which way did they go? So if you do things in a way that's not methodical, eventually you're not going to know which way you go. So that's why we don't kasher back and forth between milchiks and fleishiks. That's the minig. Minig b'nei Ashkenaz shalei deshamis klei chalav l'shimis b'sari. You don't switch a dairy vessel for use of meat, or lepech, and in the reverse, aydehechshu through kashering. Tamadav, the reason is, we're afraid you can only have 1 pot. You're going to kasher from meat to dairy, from dairy to meat. You're going to end up doing this from one day to another, constantly. Maybe you're going to forget once. You're going to use it for the opposite kind without kashering it. And you're going to have a problem. So you're going to take a milk pot and you're going to think it's flesh. You're going to heat up your chicken soup in there. And it's going to be a problem because it's going to be a ben yomi. It's going to have been used that same day. There are some ways in which it's permissible to change, but in other words, what we're saying now is, under ordinary circumstances, we're not allowed to just routinely switch back and forth like that without any system in place. Now, we're going to bring into this, of course, if you're switching from Pesach to Chometz, or from Parv to Milchix, or if someone gave you a gift, there are some exceptions to this particular set of laws. In Magil Kli Lachshir Pesach, now we're on page Kuf of Zion 127. For Kashmir a vessel from to Pesach, you're allowed to switch it. So let's say, for example, I kashed my kitchen for Pesach, and I made the entire kitchen fleishiks, because I don't cook vegetables on Pesach. Just for example, after Pesach, I'm allowed to switch whichever side I want to make to milchiks and kasher back to milchiks. Or the same would be with the pots. Because your kavanah was to do it for Pesach. Or if a vessel became, let's say, not kosher, let's say got absorbed from something forbidden by mistake. So if I have to kosherize the vessel anyways, then I can start from a clean slate. I can decide which status I want it to be. And if someone gave you a vessel as a present and you want to switch it from its original status, person says, I have this most beautiful pot. It's a fleishika pot. But you're thinking, I don't want a fleishika pot. I need a milchika pot. You're allowed to switch it over because you got it as a present. So you're like the new owner. You're starting from scratch. If a whole year lapsed from the last time it was used, then you can switch it over also. Because again, we're not worried about you coming to make a mistake because there's enough of a gap, so to speak.
Like I know my buddies, they use like pots and dishes and stuff that they haven't used in 40 years. But like they say meat on it, I can just use it for dairy.
You can kosherize it to dairy, yes. You have to kosherize it, but you could. If it's kosherizable, yeah. And a third option, which is probably the most practical, is you can kosherize a vessel, let's say it's meat or dairy, and just make it parv. And leave it in parv status for, let's say, 3 weeks. Just to give it like a softer landing, if you know what I'm saying. And then you can go on to milchiks afterwards. So, because then you're not going back and forth, you know, so to speak, from 24 hours in between, but rather you're giving it a buffer zone, it's allowed at that point. Calls them medubar and machshrei degel. And this is all speaking about if you're kosherizing through the method of boiling water. However, if you're kashering through fire, and then you can switch it in any way you want, because what's the difference? With fire, every time I heat it up, I'm kosherizing it. It's like a barbecue grill, for example, right? You keep the door closed of the grill. You turn on the grill for 15 minutes to warm it up. You're kosherizing it every time. So we're really not worried about you switching back and forth, because even if you did, before you use it, you have to kosherize it, at least at a basic level. Whereas when it comes to the water method, it's going to be a problem if it's not, you know, in a benyoime, etc. When you kash with the live fire, there's no issue with that.
Why can't you use non-kosher? You know how some like parks, they have like the grills? You should be able to use it if you're kosherizing just by heating it up.
You are correct. However, I just want to say, in these grills in the park, a lot of them, the grates are filthy.
Sure.
So if you're going to bring your own grate, for sure you could use it. If you want to use that grate, you got to scrape it down with a wire brush really well and burn it out really well first. Okay. Agalos kli besori, kli chalav yachad. Now, can I kosherize a vessel that's fleishiks and milchiks at the same time? In other words, I have a fleishik vessel that got not kosher, and I have a milchik vessel that got mixed up, also became not kosher. And they both haven't been used in 24 hours. Can I now dip them in boiling water at the same time? Interesting question, huh? It's permissible to do as long as you're sure and careful that at least one of these vessels have not been used in 24 hours. Why? Because you don't want the fresh taste coming out and spoiling the water, right? Because if they both have been used within the last 24 hours, then the water is going to come get absorbed from something forbidden. We said already before, but when you're kashering a vessel, you should try to make sure that it wasn't used in 24 hours. Okay, din machavas. Halacha lamed aleph. We're now on the bottom of page kuf chav zayin. What's a machvas? A machvas is a frying pan. Some of you girls have cooked before in a kitchen, I have to believe. What's the difference between a frying pan and a pot? Someone tell me. Besides the looks, what's the difference? What's the difference?
The frying pan is smaller and lower. A frying pan usually has a non-stick on it.
Okay, what else? A frying pan, whatever you're cooking, for the most part, is being cooked without the medium of a liquid. There's a little bit of oil, but basically the food is getting directly absorbed into this pan, not through the medium of liquid. In a pot, you're almost always using water. Water is your medium, right? You boil the water, you put in the pasta, you put in the ravioli, whatever you're doing. The water is your medium. In a frying pan, it's basically direct heat, not indirect heat. So machmas shemetagim bo yishchaluk edinim mitzricha libon gala. So a deep fryer would need hagala because a deep fryer is absorbed through liquid. But just a regular fryer, we have a little bit of oil. It's considered that the food is absorbed directly through fire. So it would have to get kosherized. If I'm kosherizing a frying pan, it needs to be not dipped in boiling water. It has to be torched with fire. So it's a stronger halacha. If I have a frying pan, let's say that was used to fry treif mamish. Let's see it fried treif meat, not kosher meat. I have to boil, red hot fire has to penetrate that actual frying pan. If it's a Teflon frying pan, it would not survive the trip, so you can't kosherize it. If it's just a pure metal frying pan, it could be done, but it's a big job. Like I said, a Teflon pan, you can't kasher because you can't put heat there, you can't put fire. On the other hand, a Teflon pot, you could kosherize because the Teflon pot is absorbed through the medium of water and you can boil water in it. Yes.
Back to the grill situation.
Yeah.
But like if you're.
It's grilling season.
Exactly. But if you're like.
It's a practical question.
If you're like grilling meat, usually like the juices drip down. Is that an issue?
It is an issue. So if you theoretically, if you wanted to use a grill in a park, you have to clean the grill from the old coals and then wire brush the grate really, really well. And then put new coals in and burn them for a good half an hour on high. So it'll burn everything out. And then you're starting clean. And it'd be better even to cover it so you can have the heat really penetrate. But
A lot easier to grill.
yes, it is easier, but someone is stuck, in the woods, or you're in survival camp, you could always, if you're in survival camp, you can see it. Which reminds me of a story, if I may tell you.
Honestly, we got pretty far into class before a story. Let's go.
You what?
I said this is pretty far.
Yes, it is. But it's a story about the context.
Oh.
Speaking of survival camp, one of my nephews went to a survival camp. It's an outdoors, he's already an adult, but he's an outdoorsy type of kid, very, very energetic, not out of the box type of kid. So he was telling us about some of the things that they did. They went on these 3-day hikes. They walked 60 miles and they camped out, all crazy stuff. So he told me that they're sleeping in the woods. They have these tents. So I said, so what do you do about the animals? I was very curious. I went to visit him. What about the animals? He says, well, we try to close the tent at night. Because one time I was on my bed and I ate a chocolate bar and I fell asleep. I guess he fell asleep, but half the chocolate bar was still on him. He says a skunk came and it climbed up on his bed and ate the rest of the bar. He says, I woke up, I didn't move. He says the skunk left. I was like, all right, that's an outdoor kid. Anyway, that was the story he told me. Halacha lamed beis. So what about, you have some pots that are colored, they have these, very pretty designs and flowers, but not, you can kasher them. That's how they come. Halacha lamed gimel, one more halacha, then we'll finish up. A vessel that requires kosherization, you're not allowed to use it, even on a temporary basis, without first kosherizing it. You are allowed to use such a vessel on a temporary basis for cold use only. Let's say, for example, you have a beautiful bowl from your grandma. It wasn't kosher. And you want to use it temporarily, you could put fruits inside there. And on a temporary basis, eventually you do have to kosherize it, because if you don't kosherize it, we're concerned you might come to use it for hot and you might forget. But on a temporary basis, it's allowed. That's a problem. A knife that you want to use on a temporary basis for cold, it's not enough to just to rinse it, because you're worried about some residue that's going to be on the blade of the knife itself, and therefore you have to go in the backyard and stab it in untouched earth 10 times. Make a movie about that. It's going to be very interesting. If it's a serrated knife, it's not going to help, because you can't really clean it well. You really have to kosherize it. Some people make a mistake and think that any knife that became usher, meaning a knife that was used for hot things, let's say it cut hot cheese, that was not kosher. So it got absorbed with hot. You can't kosherize just by stabbing on the ground. You have to kosherize it the way you got absorbed. If it got absorbed through red hot fire, to kosherize with fire. If it got absorbed through a food that was cooked with water, you have to kosherize it with boiling water. So the halacha about stabbing the knife in the ground is only as it relates to what's on the face of the knife, on the blade. But with regards to what's absorbed in the blade, you have to actually kosherize it through the medium of heat. Okay, any questions on what we learned so far? All right, so
Wait, what's this thing about stabbing?
see, I knew it. Can someone make a video about this?
No, what I'm gonna do is I'll do a TikTok series of 2 truths and a lie, and I'm gonna tell them Jewish things we do and have them figure out which one I'm lying about.
So the story is like this. If I have a knife often has residue on it because you're penetrating to food. A spoon just carries food, right? Doesn't really penetrate, but a knife digs right into food. So there is a heightened concern that the knife is going to have residue on it. How do I remove the residue? So one way to do it is to go into untouched earth and stab the knife in the ground so that the abrasion of the dirt on the side, by doing it 10 times, is going to clean it. There's a modern day way to do this, by the way. You can go in your kitchen, take a piece of steel wool with soap and go like this.
Well, that's not fun.
But it's not fun. It doesn't sound exotic. So you have the exotic old method and you have the new modern method. They're both allowed in Jewish law and they're both equally effective. Anyway, okay,
Where do you
that's
find
that.
untouched earth in Brooklyn?
Probably impossible to find it. Maybe if you have like plants or something like that, you can go your plants. Okay, that's enough for that. Are we good? Okay, now, first of all, next, so this Thursday, Mitzvah Shem, I'll let the secret out of the bag. First of all, I also have to say, it looks like this year we're actually going to finish the Sefer for the most part. I mean, it was a leap year, so we had more time, but it's pretty cool. But anyway, so this Thursday, we're going to do a double class. We're going to do a class on Hafsherim. Did I mention this already? Yeah, I said this already. Okay. So you can tell the other class, and you can ask your questions. Just don't record me. Okay, so that's for that. Now we have another 15 minutes. So I want to introduce the next subject. Maybe I'll throw in a story. Okay, I'll throw in a story anyways, because last night I told my kids a story. I don't know what to make of this story, but it's an interesting story anyways. There were 2 Hasidim of the Choyze of Lublin. Choyze of Lublin was a tzaddik. And there were 2 Hasidim. One's name was Shmuel. One's name was Yechanan. They wanted to travel to the Rebbe, to be by the Rebbe. Now, these Hasidim, they were distinguished people. Reb Shmuel was a dayan. He was a Jewish judge in the city, and Rabbi Yochanan was a rav in the city. And they wanted to travel to the Rebbe, but they didn't have the funds to be able to pay for the carriage, for the wagon. And it was physically impossible to walk that far. So they hired a wagon to take them, and they figured that they're going to get money along the way. People will give them money. And they're traveling along the way, and they're halfway towards Lublin. And then the wagon driver says, we need to stop to feed the horses. Today you have to feed the car. It used to cost $2.50 to feed the car. It's $5 to feed the car per gallon. In those days you had to feed the horses. So Chassidim said, okay, so why don't you stop in a certain town, by a certain house? There was a wealthy farmer there. And Shmuel and Yochanan decided together that they're going to play the role of Rebbe and Gabbai. Shmuel is going to be the Gabbai. Rebbe is the Gabbai, right? And Yochanan is going to be the Rebbe. So Shmuel goes and knocks on the door of this farmer's house. He's a very well-to-do, charitable man. He says, Shalom Aleichem. He says, I'm traveling with the Rebbe. He gives the name, some Chak Rebbe, some kind of name he gives, fictitious name. And we're traveling through town. We want to know if we can stay in your house for a few hours to rest. So sure, come on in. So the Rebbe comes in with a cane and he holds his arm, makes the whole show. And then the Rebbe has a private room. And then, so the Rebbe, Yochanan, is staying in his own private room and he's resting. And Shmuel, the Gabbai, is talking to the farmer. And the farmer says to Yochanan, to Shmuel, he says, my wife and I have been 25 years we're married, and we haven't been blessed with children. Thank God we've been blessed with wonderful blessings. We're very well to do, but we would love to have a blessing for children. Is it possible that we can get a blessing from the Rebbe? So Shmuel says, yes, we'll knock on the Rebbe's door and see if the Rebbe's available. The whole thing is playing out. They knock on the Rebbe's door, and the Rebbe opens the door. He says, yeah, the farmer can come in. So the farmer comes in and pours out his heart to the Rebbe and says, 25 years my wife and I are married. Don't have any children. We want a bracha for children. So Yochanan, the Rebbe, closes his eyes, says a kapitel tiller, and concentrates and says, within a year, your wife and I are going to be your wife and yourself, you and your wife are going to be blessed with a son. The farmer was very grateful, and he gave a very big check, because he wrote a pidyon nefesh, a pan. He wrote like a letter to the Rebbe, and he gave a lot of money to the Rebbe. And they left, and they blessed the part of the way. They blessed each other, and then as they went, the money that the farmer gave, was enough money to pay for the horse and wagon to have food that he needed, and also to pay the driver for the trip to Lublin and to go back. They get to Lublin, and the Choyzer, the real Rebbe, his Gabbai, summons him and says, I want you to find me Shmuel and Yochanan from this and this town. So the Gabbai's running around, anyone named Shmuel, Yochanan from this and this town? They said, yes, it's us. And they got concerned, maybe they're in trouble, that the Rebbe is calling them, so, they got a little concerned. And the Choyzer calls them in and says to them, I see with Ruach HaKodesh that one of you gave a bracha. I don't know which one of you was the Rebbe and which one was the Gabbai. So Yochanan says, I was the Rebbe. And Shmuel says he was the Gabbai. And the Choyzer says to them, I see min Shamayim, I see it in Shamayim that the bracha is going to be mekoyim, it's going to be fulfilled. Oh. You should know that for 25 years, this farm has been coming to me and asking me for a bracha for children, but I couldn't help them. I couldn't see any way to give them the bracha, to be able to get the bracha out, to bring it down. And somehow, when you gave them the bracha, it's going to be mekoyim. So the story, the person who told the story ends up by saying that Chassidim give to the Rebbe also. We give to the Rebbe. I told the story to my wife last night, and she said something else, another interesting insight. She said that the Chassidim, they access their, every year has a koyach ein sof, unlimited koyach, connecting with Hashem. And they gave the bracha with all earnestness. He wanted to come to the Rebbe. He had no other way to get to the Rebbe. He just made it happen. Anyway, so that's just something to share. Okay. Now we're going to learn the Halachas of Challah. It's our next subject. I want to give you an introduction to the Halachas of Challah by sharing with you a Sikha Rebbe on the subject of Hafrashat Challah. The halacha is that in Eretz Yisrael, there are certain measurements that you have to give. It's referring to a time when most Yidden already moved to Eretz Yisrael, when Mashiach comes. So it says the halacha is as follows. A balabas, meaning a person who's taking challah from dough they're making in their house. They have to take echad michov daled, 1/24 of the batch. So mathematically, if you're doing, say, 10 pounds, it's going to be 1/24 of the 10 pounds. It has to be the amount you're actually separating. Or if you're doing a 20-pound batch, it's going to be 1/24 of that. So as the batch grows in size, the amount you're removing is going to get bigger and bigger. And it says that a nachtoim, meaning a person who's doing it for a business, takes half that amount. It takes 1/48. So in halacha, it's explained why is it that a homeowner takes a double amount, which is 1/24, and a manufacturer takes half the amount, 1/48. So it's explained that it has to be kidei nesina, that what you're going to give to the kohen, the Rambam explains this. It should be choshev, it should be something of substance. So since a manufacturer, and generally speaking, is always dealing with larger volumes, so even if they're only going to give half the amount that a homeowner to give, is still going to be of substance. On the other hand, when it comes to a homeowner, since they're dealing with smaller substances, yes, so then they have to give double the amount to be able to make it something that's going to be of substance. That's the halacha, that's the reason according to Nigla. But the Rebbe gives us a reason according to Chassidus. And I'm going to ask you girls to pay attention, because everything the Rebbe says is unbelievable. This is like, you can't properly understand the halacha without the Chassidus. The Rebbe explains what's the whole idea of taking challah. The idea of taking challah is recognizing that our challah is parnas, right? It's dough, it's our sustenance, our substance. It's recognizing that everything is from Hashem. Yes? So a balabas, the Rebbe says, a balabas is somebody who stays in a Torah environment. They're in their home, right? They're not in an environment where they're seeing business deals taking place. They're in a more sheltered environment. They have to take double the amount, because they have to take double the amount to be able to remind themselves everything's from Hashem. Whereas a person who's in business, a manufacturer, they're constantly seeing how the Eibishter with Hashgacha Pratis makes Ruvain meet Shimon, and they do a deal, and this happens, that happens. Constantly seeing Hashgacha Pratis all the time. And the whole idea of taking challah is recognizing that everything is from Hashem. So they have a stronger, more acute sense of Hashgacha Pratis because they're involved in business all the time. And therefore, it's enough for them to take only half that amount, 1/148. A challah is gematria what? Challah is 43. What's the gematria 43, right? As we're going to see soon, that's the amount. That's to be 150, 1/43 of something. This one, maybe it's a eggs. I don't remember. I'm sorry. It says when you get there. Anyway, okay. Let's go inside now. Page Kuf Lamed Aleph. So it's quoting a pasuk, because the mitzvah of taking challah as min Torah is only when all Yidden come to Eretz Yisrael. By the way, I want to just finish off by saying that in Chutz La'aretz, where we live outside of Eretz Yisrael, the idea of taking challah is only rabbinic in nature, and the minig is to take a kezayis. We don't have these shiurim in Chutz La'aretz, because the whole halachas of challah are in Eretz Yisrael. So in Chutz La'aretz, the minhag is to take a kazayas. Really, halachically, you can even take less than a kazayas. And in terms of how much dough you have to make the bracha, it's clearly laid out in the spice. What's it called? The spice, the spirit.
The purple cookbook.
Yeah, the kosher cookbook. I think it's called. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, spice and spirit. So there's a clear chart there. Less than a certain amount of pounds, you don't even take challah. Over a certain amount of pounds, you take challah without a bracha, and after a certain amount of pounds, you do take challah with a bracha. Keep that in mind when you make challah. Okay, when you come to the lands, referring to coming to Eretz Yisrael, that I bring you there. When you're going to eat from the lechem of the earth, you should separate the truma to Hashem. The first of your dough, you should take truma, which is again separating. The truma is good and from the threshing floor. So from the beginning of your dough, first of your dough, you should take and separate a truma for generations. Now, I also want to say, why is it that at the time when we're taking challah, or when you're baking challah, it's an Eis. Why is it considered to be an auspicious time to ask for brachas for people, to daven for people? Because everything has a spiritual representation. You grow wheat outside in the field. The field is like a Rishus HaRabim. I mean, it could even be a privately owned field, but it's like the open, vast wilderness, so to speak. It's the outside. And the idea of taking the challah is gathering the wheat inside and bringing it inside the home. Inside the home is a Rishus HaYachid. So it's the idea of taking the substance of the world and elevating it to godliness. That's why it's such an auspicious time. Shoni mitzvahs challah mikol shar mitzvahs hanegas v'feris haaretz ki kol shar chivu yeteitzos haaretz meitruma ma'aser muvan lanu ki Hashem nasa lanu matar v'chay mishemesh v'tzvir chazatu v'gnalin kol nezek. So when it comes to, let's say, truma and ma'aser, where Hashem allows the crops to grow and He protects them from harm, and therefore we separate and we give truma or ma'aser. Shim la'yero le'amatl is smecha tvua. If we didn't any rain, things couldn't grow. And if you're going to get hail coming down, it will ruin the crops. Therefore, we have to thank Hashem. We have to give. How do we thank Hashem? By giving a portion of our crops to the Kohanim, because the Kohanim represent those that are devoted and given over to Hashem. Okay? Now, mitzvahs challah einu mevenes kol kach ki ma bolo hesef. So the question is asked, what is challah coming to add? We already take truma and ma'aser, which is the idea of, again, recognizing it's from Hashem and giving it to the Kohanim who are the ones that are serving Hashem because they're all totally devoted to Hashem. So what else do we have to do? So the answer is, mitzvahs challah shafrashat challah is done in the house. The hafrasha, separating the challah, is done in the house. Whereas truma and ma'aser is done in the fields, separate. So in Yana Lalamit Shemavadrich she ala klal kulai, it's coming to teach us that besides the fact that we're supposed to separate from our blessings that Hashem gave us, we also want to bring a bracha to the bayis, to bring a bracha in the home itself. Sheish seva b'chol bayis should be Yisrael. So, which means to say, you can have the fields that can be blessed, can grow very nice crops, but if it's not going to translate and come back into the person's home to be able to use it, it's going to be a loss. It's going to be it's not going to fulfill its purpose. So the point is to bring the bracha into the home. It's the idea of challah is to take the substance and bring it into everyone's home, so the bracha can actually be in everyone's individual home. Okay, we're gonna have to continue this mitzvah Shem the next class. We'll see you Thursday, Be'ez Hashem. Have a wonderful week. I don't know how many more classes will be after this, but we'll see.
I'm borrowing these shirts or something.